What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel Cheelin Travel. If you've ever scrolled through social media and thought, yeah, this kind of trip must be for millionaires, I'm about to ruin that assumption in a good way. Because across Asia in 2026, there are still countries where a full day of travel costs less than what people spend on a casual night out. And I'm not doing the vague, trust me, it's cheap thing. For every country on this list, I'm going to anchor it with real numbers, what budget travelers typically spend per day, and how that day breaks down between sleeping, eating, getting around, and doing actual stuff. Alright, let's count it down. Number 10 is Myanmar. Myanmar is the one where the prices can look friendly, but the trip can still swing hard depending on how you build your days. On average, budget travelers land around $44 per day. Now here's why it can feel cheap. The baseline parts of the day stay surprisingly low. For accommodation, you're often around $4.79, food sits near $6.14, and local transport is roughly $2.61. So if your day is mostly walking, local meals, and short rides, the costs stay under control. The catch is what happens when you start stacking paid highlights. In the same data, the entertainment and sightseeing side can jump massively. One estimate shows that category averaging around $57, which is exactly how a cheap day suddenly turns into a pricey one. Myanmar isn't expensive by default, it just punishes aggressive itineraries. Number 9, Bangladesh. People talk about Bangladesh like it's only crowded and intense, but if you look at a day through the budget lens, it's actually very straightforward. Budget travelers average about $24 per day. And the reason that number holds is that each part of the day stays in a narrow range. For a basic shared room, the accommodation line sits around $12. Then food usually comes in near $8.44. Getting around locally stays light at about $2.56. And even if you include paid activities, that entertainment piece averages around $6.39. So the cheap part here isn't one crazy bargain. It's that the whole day stays predictable as long as you keep lodging simple. Number 8, Pakistan. Pakistan's affordability makes more sense when you think about how the country runs for itself. Markets, transport routes, daily commuting, and cities that weren't built around tourists. That structure is why budget travelers average about $24 per day. What's interesting is how balanced the day can be. Accommodation tends to sit near $9.53. Food comes in almost the same, around $9.50. Local transport averages about $3.21, and entertainment is often the smallest slice, roughly $2.42. Put that together and you get a trip that stays stable. Nothing spikes so hard that it breaks the budget. In fact, one estimate puts a one-week trip at around $425 for one person, or $850 for two once you add it all up. In Pakistan, money stays low, while distance and time do most of the heavy lifting. Number 7, Vietnam. Vietnam is one of the few places where budget travel doesn't feel like survival mode. The day starts on the street, metal shutters rolling up, scooters idling, and food appearing fast enough that you stop thinking about planning meals. Now here's the part that makes it real. Budget travelers average about $24 per day. Within that, accommodation often sits around $9.38. Food comes in near $8.50. Local transport averages about $4.11, and entertainment, things like small entry fees, short tour, paid stops, lands around $4.93. So you're not just saving money, you're buying a day that still includes movement and actual experiences. And if you want a reality check on how quickly comfort upgrades change the math, mid-range travelers average around $65 per day. Vietnam stays cheap when you keep the formula consistent. Simple room, constant local food, and short paid moments instead of expensive big days. Number 6 is Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a country where your budget is often fine, but your schedule is negotiated with the island. On paper, budget travelers average about $22 per day, while mid-range travelers sit around $60 per day. If you're aiming for the cheap lane, the numbers show you how it's done. Accommodation averages around $8.33. Food is roughly $9.86. Transport stays extremely low, about $1.76, and entertainment comes in near $2.96. That transport number matters because Sri Lanka is a country of corridors. Coast, hills, heritage cities back to coast. You can keep moving without paying much for every step. But if you travel in the typical vacation style, costs rise fast. One estimate puts the typical traveler at $60 per day, with meals averaging 26 and hotels averaging 48. Sri Lanka can be cheap, but it rewards travelers who move slow and stay simple, especially when weather starts rearranging plans. Number 5. India. India is the classic example of a country where the budget works because every category stays low at the same time. Budget travelers average around $16 per day. That number becomes believable when you look at how the day stacks. Accommodation lands around $6.15 and food sits at almost the same level, another $6.15. Local transport averages about $2.21 and entertainment comes in around $3.56. So it's not one miracle price. It's the entire daily ecosystem staying small. And if you want the normal traveler comparison, the typical spend is closer to $43 per day, still reasonable, but a different style of trip. India is cheap in the most literal way. The day doesn't force you into big purchases. Number 4. Nepal. Nepal is one of the cleanest budget equations in Asia, until you start converting mountains into logistics. On a basic day, accommodation sits near $5.06, food averages about $5.39, and local transport comes in around $3.51. Then entertainment, small fees, local activities, lands around $2.92. So the base day stays low. Where Nepal changes is when you add altitude costs, permits, guides, transport to trailheads. The daily baseline remains cheap, but the trek-specific spending arrives as its own layer. For a bigger, this is real money number. A one-week trip for 2 people averages around $586. Nepal doesn't usually charge you for being there. It charges you when you try to go deeper. Number 3. Mongolia. Morning, you leave the edges of the city and the horizon starts doing most of the talking. Midday, the distances stop feeling like travel time and start feeling like geography. Evening, you're back to simple routines, hot food, a warm space, and a sky that looks too wide to be real. And here's the twist. Budget travelers average around $12 per day. Part of why that's believable is that even the meal ranges stay modest. Breakfast often falls around $2 to $4, lunch around $2 to $6, dinner around $5 to $10, and coffee can be around $1. In the daily breakdown, accommodation averages about $4.01, food near $5.03, local transport around $1.07, and entertainment about $1.65. Mongolia can be shockingly cheap day-to-day, until you start paying for distance. Number 2. Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan isn't one travel experience, it's a set of different worlds under one border. And somehow, the budget numbers still come out tiny. The piece that really explains the ranking is transport. Local transportation on a budget is listed around $0.24 per day. That's the kind of number that changes how you move because you stop hesitating about short rides. Accommodation averages about $3.02. Food comes in around $4.05, and entertainment sits near $1.02. Kazakhstan feels cheap not because you do nothing, but because the country doesn't punish small decisions. Number 1. Laos. Laos takes number 1 because the whole day stays small, especially when you read it through food. Sticky rice, lop, grilled fish, tam mak hung, meals that repeat without needing a special occasion price tag. Accommodation is often about $3.22. Food averages around $4.71. Local transport sits near $0.78, and entertainment comes in around $1.08. So Laos hits the single digits because nothing spikes. The trip doesn't demand constant paid attractions. It's a country where time, walking, markets, and river evenings are doing the work, and your wallet mostly just keeps up. And that's the list: 10 places in Asia where cheap isn't a vibe, it's math. If this analysis was useful, like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.